Hello, everyone. We wanted to talk some more today about carving machines. Although I just did an exhaustive series that you may have seen about how we take a flat spoke shave, which is really a plane, a kind of a plane, and turn it into a spoon bottom plane with a beautifully and appropriately small throat opening. I realize that this is an awful lot of work, but still we need to get the job done. And if we don't have the resources to make our own tools like these that I've made, or to modify tools like this one, the Stanley box scraper that I've modified or even evolved into a new tool, well, maybe we should have a look at tools that we can buy and that you may already own and see what we can do about optimizing them for the job of carving archtop plates. All right, well, this is a Stanley 100½, and this is a classic old workhorse. I know Jimmy DeQuisto had a couple of these in his shop when I visited him. It's cool. And it works okay, partly because it has a handle, and you can actually get a pretty good grip on it. It's a one-handed plane, of course, but you can get some good purchase on it and hold it securely and get some force behind it and take some wood away. Now, these are so-called violin planes, although, of course, they could be used for any size of those bowed instruments, from violins up to basses. And by the way, I understand that cello and bass makers, many of them use this Stanley box scraper, so-called box scraper, which is a little plane, to good effect. Again, more on that later. We'll have a special session on those. But for now, let's look at these smaller ones. And I've never really gotten much use out of these because they're fussy to hold, they're hard to hold, and they're kind of sharp, and they don't have the handle that we see on this 100½, Stanley. So if you look up in the violin Maestro Net and these other places where violin builders talk to one another and look up their planes, they've all figured out how to attach some little handle there. And I think we're going to follow in their footsteps and try and stick a handle like this onto this little plane. Now, here's an Ibex brand plane, which is quite well made, very nice tool, actually. Good quality iron, and it's got the oval pattern on the sole, and the throat opening is pretty close, pretty good throat opening. But again, fussy, hard to hold, and these are also quite expensive. And here's the Chinese version of the same plane. It's a little clunky, but it works fine. They can work fine. But the problem is that when we get them, their bottoms are just sort of grossly shaped and aren't really a lot of fun to use as a result. So if we look at this 12-inch radius gauge here, we can see that the plane is kind of this shape, but you can see there's various bumps and fall off, and there's a big fall off in the front, which isn't helpful. And then there's a bump back here and a hollow in the middle where it's kind of flat. Anyway, far from what we would hope. And I'm going to show you that with a little bit of work, we can get this to be a beautiful shape and work quite well. And as I mentioned, we're also going to stick a handle on here so that we can get some force behind it without tiring and injuring our hands in the process. Okay, so we're going to try and configure this as a 12-inch arc radius on the bottom in the long direction, and across, well, something like it anyway, something like 12 or maybe a little bit tighter arc radius, maybe 10 or 9 inches arc radius across, something like that. Although it could be 12. It would be fine if it were 12. Maybe we'll do that. We'll see how it works out. Anyway, first thing we're going to want to do is to make a gauge that will also make a mark on the plane. So while we're addressing the bottom of this plane, we're going to remove most of the offending material with a file, but we'll finish up with sandpaper, and of course we'll need an accurate guide for the sandpaper so that we can be assured of always cutting the right size arc on the bottom of this plane. So here I've taken a stick of maple and put a little sharp pin in this end, and we've scribed a nice arc at the at a 12-inch radius. We're going to go ahead and saw this out. On the bandsaw. And the idea here is that we're going to have sandpaper stuck to one side of these two pieces, and then we'll sand the other side and back and forth until we get really true surfaces. And then, of course, we'll be using this hollow side, the one on your right, this one, to actually mark and then to some extent cut the bottom of this plane. So first job is to get over to the bandsaw and saw this line. I can refer you to a tutorial that we did a little while ago about cutting curves on the bandsaw that might help you get a better cut. So I flip it around, and I can see that I've made some sawing errors, which aren't too bad. And now anyway, we're going to use the sandpaper to go back and forth and generate a true arc form. So this is a sticky back sandpaper, which I like very much. This gets used a lot around here. All right. It's nice to use particle board for things like this because it doesn't really have much of an opinion, and that it's so homogeneous that it cuts equally well in every direction and every place. So it's kind of a nice way to make things that need to be precisely shaped You can see that we're getting pretty close here. I've just got 3 little problems. But I think what we'll do now is put the sandpaper on this part. This is 120 grit paper. And I think well, we're almost done. One little problem over here. Probably won't be an issue in real life. But while we're here, we'll take care of it. Okay, well, we have 100% sanded surface here. No bandsaw marks. That's a good thing. So I'm going to mark this 12 inches, which is, what is that? About 300 millimeters, I guess. 12 inches radius arc. Okay, and now we'll put some sandpaper on this surface, a finer grit. Maybe 220 is good. And we're going to be ready to take a look at that plain bottom and mark the high spots with our new sanding tool. Okay. Now we've made sure that blade is not in the way, not in danger of getting cut. So now the tool has done its job for us, and it's shown us these 2 places that are touching right away, right?